today. We are a general trade bookstore, so we don't do any used. We are just new, but we have a little bit of everything. I would say we are probably 40% adult fiction, including mystery, 30% nonfiction, and 30% kids. So that's kind of the breakdown for our store.
Cool. Next one, David Sandberg.
Hi, I am one of the owners of Porter Square Books in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Actually, just to correct you, it's not owned by a white man. My wife and I bought the bookstore about 7 or 8 years ago, but about 3 years ago, we sold half of it to a bunch of members of our senior staff, and so now the bookstore is owned about 2/3 by women and 1/3 by men. But we're here in Cambridge, Mass. I have, before Dean and I bought the store, I had zero background in bookselling, nor did she. But we have the advantage of having come into a store with people that are very, very knowledgeable. And so we've learned a lot in the last 7 years. We also are a general bookstore selling new books only. We are, and I'll put in one other thing, one other plug for us. We are the 2020 Publishers Weekly Bookstore of the Year, and I'm very proud, very proud of of our entire staff and ownership for that.
Fantastic. Okay, Kamani Harrison.
Hi guys. So I've been selling books for 3 years now, since 2018. So it's the Key Bookstore. We call ourselves an interactive online bookstore. I'm 100% owner, and I identify as a Black woman. And yeah, we curate our selection for Afrocentricity, spirituality, environmentalism, and entrepreneurship. So yeah, the types of books we sell are like kind of on the esoteric side or history, those kinds of things. And then now with an actual storefront, we've been able to introduce a bunch of like diverse kids books. And yeah, most of our experiences online and then in person. So we actually mobilize ourselves in the community. So popping up at events with like the Urban League or at open mics, or popping up in the club at 2 a.m, like we're out there when there was a club at 2 a.m. Yeah. So that's how we kind of got our name out there in the community. People would be like, why are books in the club? Or why are books, what are they doing here? And they belong everywhere. So with every community. So that's our name.
Wow. Okay. So I actually wasn't aware of either that aspect of your work, or David just set me straight on how Porter Square Books works too. So I'm already learning quite a bit about these different business models. Next person, Susie. Can you tell us about Susie's stories?
I can. Well, Susie's stories actually came about by accident. My husband was up in Rockport to do a business meeting with another nonprofit that he works closely with. And it's a quaint little town. So, you know, we were walking around, and the host kind of showed us the town. In the next week or so, we went up on our own. And it was a couple of little shops that were for rent. They had just come from rent, and I'm being, you know, kind of a nosy person. I thought it was cute and just was interested in how much it would, you know, how much they would rent it for. So I called the number, and the owner said, "Oh, okay, well, what, you know, what would you want to do?" You know, and of course, I'm just being nosy to try to find out how, you know, what they're renting for. I said, "I'm an author. How about a bookstore?" And she said, "Oh, that's wonderful. We don't have our bookstore." They had a very beloved bookstore called Toad Hall for many, many, many years, and the community kind of grew up around Toad Hall. So they had lost Toad Hall a couple of years before. So they were delighted that a bookstore was going in. So that's kind of how Susie's Stories got started. I didn't have any, you know, selling books. I didn't, we didn't really know about selling books, but we've been learning, and my husband's helped me a lot. He's, come in to take care of a lot of the, the inventory and the day-to-day operations and that sort of thing. So it's been really, really, really a fun experience for us. And this is our second season, as they call it. It's really a tourist, destination, but we've stretched it into, trying to go as, far into the year as we can.
Cool. And last but not least, and I swear I had no intention of doing this alphabetically, but we are ending with Z.
Okay, no problem. So I'm Z Johnson, and I'm the sole owner of Olive Tree Books and Voices, which is in Springfield, Massachusetts. And it actually started out as a delayed retirement hobby. I said once I retire, I will have a bookstore and I'll just greet customers and just read books all day. But that changed because after I started out with just a small group of friends, the business really took off. And I found that people were requesting, books, wanted to know my opinion on books and things of that nature. So it really became a business. So here I am 15 years later, not having retired, but working the bookstore as a business. In terms of our customers and some of the products we sell, we only sell new books as well, and we have a general book stock. We sell religious books, inspirational books. They're all from an Afro-American theme. We sell kids books. We sell historical books. So pretty much we sell any type of book that has an African-American background. One of the things that we focus on is really staying true to our mission. We want it to be a bookstore, but it's very easy to kind of get sidetracked and start selling other items because of survival mode. But what we said was we are a bookstore, so we stayed true to that even over the 15 years. The bookstore originally was a house. It was an abandoned house, and I was fortunate enough to buy it and turn it into a bookstore, which has about 7 rooms filled with, plenty of books, as I mentioned, kids books and all other books. And the bookstore originally, before the pandemic, was a socialization networking hub. It was like a center for pretty much anything. People would come in and meet folks, meet and greet. We had a lot of author events and etc. But shortly after the pandemic, that particular theme changed. So I'm glad to meet all of you. If you're in the area or you want to come to the area, please look up Olive Tree Books and Voices.
Next time I'm in Springfield, whenever that is, I absolutely will. Okay, what I'd like to, I'm throwing this next one out to the panel as a whole, so we're doubtless going to have one of those awkward, I'm sorry, no, you start things, but so be it. Please tell us how you've managed how have you pivoted to stay afloat in these strange times? And also, do you find that your community has supported you or not? And people are finding that we are much more creative than we ever thought we were. We've heard about businesses going under, tragically, but we've also heard about some real success stories. How are you doing in 2020?
Well, looks like it's on me. So we are actually doing fine right now. It's been kind of a struggle for us. Unfortunately, we did get more business around the George Floyd tragedy, but the community has supported us. They seem to have rallied around us. We do online, we, sell, children's books, adult books, and we've had a lot of people come in over the summer, even with the pandemic, and just say, we want to help, we want to support you, we want you to stay. Basically, what can we do? So we have been fortunate in that aspect.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Kamani.
Yeah, I would say it reminds me of 4 years ago, 2016, when I got enlightened to this whole thing and turned to a Black-owned bookstore for knowledge. I was positioned in 2020 to now gain business from the George Floyd situation. And yeah, astronomical growth in the matter of a couple of weeks. And this storefront was not in the plans for any time soon. We were interactive online. You know, we were able to drop ship and everything, but actually the storefront became a necessity. We had to pivot to be our own distribution, when I'm sure that's kind of also what I do want to ask other booksellers. I haven't been able to talk to anyone actually, but our distributor really failed in prioritizing our customers, knowing that a lot of independent bookstores were finally getting a high rate of sales. So because they decided not to prioritize our orders, we had to begin shipping out our stuff. And we had volunteers showing up from the community, spending hours and hours helping us package up thousands of orders to send out all over the place. But yeah, the support and it's retained since. We just had someone that was a volunteer here putting in an order for her school. So yeah, it's continuing. So people are happy to have this resource here, thankfully.
Does that sound familiar to any of the other booksellers on our panel?
Well, yeah, we also, had to change to essentially be an online bookstore for a few months. We were closed altogether. That's all we were. It involved really changing all our systems, because we weren't set up to take in large volumes of online orders and process them and ship and all that stuff. We were able to keep, none of our staff left, but people now spend their time working very differently than they did in March. We opened up slightly I think we opened the store to customers again in July. But like the others have said, the some of the changes that happened have continued, such as a large volume of online orders, and it's just a whole different logistics and infrastructure than regularly running a bookstore. It's like running a warehouse, and you need space, you need different skills, you need different equipment and different systems, and it's taken us a little while to figure out how to do that well and efficiently, but I think we've done okay. I think also what was important for us is that we did have a very established online presence before the pandemic happened, and so I think it was easy for our community and our customers to start interacting with us online instead of in person, because we were already there and they knew we were there and we had our personality and our presence, and so I think for us it wasn't as hard as it could have been to shift more to an online focus. The last thing I'll say about it is, and I'm sure every one of the booksellers would echo this, filling online orders might help pay the bills, but it sure ain't fun, and it's not why any of us got into bookselling, to run a warehouse. We're all happy that we're getting this business and it's paying the bills, but it's not the same as interacting with people in the store and talking about books. We still have some people in the store, but we limit capacity and we ask them not to be in the store for a long time. And there's no more, we don't have seating anymore in the store. The cafe only does takeout. So it's a very different business in that way too, so socially and communally, than it used to be.
Yeah, echo David. We use the same platform that Porter Square does for our website, Indie Commerce. And we certainly didn't have the established presence that they did, but having done some big pre-order campaigns and other campaigns, we were ready, more ready than some, to pivot to being online and remaining online only. We still haven't opened our doors to the public, so we closed in March. And like Porter Square as well, kept all of our staff on at their full hours of benefits and just shifted to being distribution. And the biggest thing that we've done in terms of connecting with our community, which has been super supportive, is we have always been an events-driven bookstore. We average somewhere between 100 and 150 events a year in the before times, in normal times. And since March, we've had over 80 Zoom virtual events of different stripes and flavors, as well as 3 times a week a story time, featuring our children's manager reading stories for kids. And we concurrently right now have 4 different book fairs going on at once for different local schools and organizations. So we're trying to stay connected to our community and provide the services we have as a brick and mortar store as now a virtual store.
And Z, what's your experience been?
And we were sort of caught off guard because we did not have an online presence at all. As I mentioned, all of our community supports and customers were either walk-in or referrals, but we were so community-based and so relationship-based that we didn't have an online presence. And then when the pandemic and some of these other social justice events, such as George Floyd's murder occurred, we had to really start running quickly. And even now, we don't have an official online presence, but I'm able to take orders by way of email, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media efforts. And that's what forced me to kind of take a look at our business model, which is going to include online ordering. But the community was very supportive in terms of keeping the bookstore alive. They made sure that we had everything that we needed. For example, if customers drove by and the lights were on, inadvertently they would call me and say, Z, turn the lights off. The lights are on, that kind of thing. So they were very supportive from that viewpoint. And I also was able to gain new customers that I had not been exposed to before. And a lot of the new customers said, well, we didn't know you were here. How long have you been here? I said, 15 years. And that's okay, though. And then the last thing I was going to say is, even though, we've had a lot of support. And, it's unfortunate that it was the result of some adverse situations, but, we have really maintained those relationships with institutions, schools, systems, and things like that. So that has kept us afloat.
I just want to say, it's what you think you just heard from all 5 of us, and so I'll summarize. I think what has kept bookstores going in the last 8 months is all 5 of us just told you about the importance of the community to our being able to get through these times, and all these 5 are community focused bookstores that are really in touch with their author communities, their school communities, their local communities, and everyone knew starting in March that you could buy stuff cheap on Amazon. Mm-hmm. and yet people felt about their local bookstores in a way, this is an important local thing, I need to keep supporting these guys. And whether it was through online or on the telephone or however we've been able to continue to do business, what all of us have in common is that our communities felt we were really important and that supporting us was really important, and that's why we're all still here.
Wow. I'm actually, because of what you just said, I'm going to jump ahead a couple questions. Please stand by. I have here a quote from an article I read some time ago, and it's about how back up a little. We don't think of bookstores as being huge economic engines necessarily. You know, they're not enormous factories. They're not making cars, you know, whatever. But I think this came as a bit of a surprise to me. I'll just read you the quote and then ask you your take on it. The Institute for Local Self-Reliance reports that for every $10 million in sales, local bookstores create 47 jobs. Contrast that with Amazon. Yeah, I know I just said a dirty word, but which creates just 19. So again, 19 as compared to 47. And you might realize that that quirky girl hand selling you a book of poetry is a representative of a powerful economic engine. And all those indie bookstore jobs act as a multiplier to other local businesses too. Local employees tend to keep their money in the neighborhood. According to the 2018 Small Business Saturday Consumer Insights Survey, quote, for every 10 jobs at a small business, another 7 are supported in the local community, unquote. So then they go on to describe, again, how that's specific to bookstores. This was written pre-pandemic, but in normal times, you know, the dynamic was with a brick and mortar store, somebody goes into a bookstore, buys a book, and then walks down a couple doors to the coffee shop and, you know, sits down with a donut and a latte, perhaps while they're waiting for their laundry to finish the spin cycle at the laundromat. And so the article goes on to explain that even a small bookstore in, say, a strip mall or something like that can really function by creating a lot of economic stability in a way that I was not previously aware of, and I'm just throwing that out. Has that been something you've observed? Is this something people are maybe more aware of now than previously?
I mean, it's very obvious that, yeah, my customers are very like community oriented. Mm-hmm. This was why we modeled this bookstore as about connection, because the type of people that we attract, and I'm sure, like, yeah, for bookstores, it's people that want to connect with their community, you know, far and wide, you know. So, yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
And I think to answer another one of the questions that, man, people are more aware of it than they have been. It's taken 15, 20, 25 years to get the message out there about the impact that Amazon has on the economy beyond just what people think in the short term, at least, a positive impact on their wallet, but the negative impacts very broadly on jobs. Along with those 3 times as many jobs we created our stores, we also pay federal taxes, which I know that Amazon does not. So we're contributing our community that way as well. And it has been really encouraging to see what bookstores, you know, all of our bookstores in general, our regional and national trade organization, buy local organizations, this message is getting across, and people are finally appreciating that if they want their businesses they love to stay around, they have to support them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I think the constant we're hearing right now is community, and I had a couple questions about that. Susie, of all of the booksellers here tonight, I believe you're in the smallest community demographically, Rockport having a population of about 7,000. So what are some of the pluses and minuses of being in a small town like Rockport instead of a big city like Boston or Hartford?
Well, one of the pluses would be it is a small community, but it is also a tourist community in the summertime. Mm-hmm. So we do have a lot of the locals. It's very interesting, like any little town, they're their own island, and they know each and every one of the other 7,699,000 people that live there. And so it's kind of everybody knows everybody. And so it's been very interesting, and I just think the advantage is closeness. You do know your neighbor, you do know who you're trading or sitting down with coffee and walking around and seeing somebody go to buy, you know, the lobster, the seafood, or whatever. And even in the summertime, it's lots of people that have friends and family there that just come back. So even though it swells, it's still a community feel because it's, you know, people still come back to the area. So it's very interesting that way. It's, you know, it's just been amazing of how much we've learned from that small community. Going in not knowing anything or anybody, and you know, it's really kind of blossomed, and you know, it's been exciting. So it's very interesting to know. So we look forward to what comes next. What comes next year? So
Yeah, well, I'm already planning.
Oh.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was going to add something to that in the sense of community. So if you don't know Rockport, if you've never been, you know, it's basically an artist colony. At least it's turned into an artist colony over the last several years. So in that kind of environment, everyone up there really recognizes that, you know, they rely on each other. So the small businesses have to support each other there. And then that kind of carries over into the community. And my wife mentioned Toad Hall before. So that was actually a community-owned bookstore. I'm still not exactly sure how that model worked, but it was somehow partly owned. It was a nonprofit model of some kind. And it lasted for a long time. A lot of people in the town actually worked there, volunteered there, and so we're kind of capitalizing on that because people still seem to crave that. So as far as what supported us, because we've lost the tourist trade this year, but there's a lot of people looking for that sense of community that they got from Toad Hall. So we try to offer the same kind of, the advantage of a small bookstore, I think to your point, is that customer service. So we can spend time talking to anyone that has questions. We'll spend a lot of time talking to them. You know, people, if they want opinions on what we would recommend, we'll take as much time as needed to let them look around as much as they want to, give them a feeling that they're welcome. And I think that resonates with people. And then they in turn seem to spread the word to other people that feel similarly about books and want to, you know, put hands on and actually talk and discuss what they may read. So I think that's helped us a lot.
And nostalgia. They'll come into the bookstore and see something that they've seen as a kid, and you know, and just, you know, just tell us stories about that and who read this and that sort of thing. So
yeah, well, I have to say, not speaking not as an author now, but as a parent. I have two kids, they're teenagers now, but the joy of watching your child love a book that you loved when you were a child, there's really just nothing else like it.
And I was going to say something about the community piece too. I'm surrounded by colleges, by churches, by community centers. So I'm able to be a central point in terms of all those entities. So I get I get college kids, I get college professors, I get churches, I get ministers looking for Bibles and things like that. So community is a strong point in the bookstore.
I'm going to actually say something to our audience now, the people who are all muted right now. I'm hoping to save some time at the end for questions from the audience. So if you think of anything, you can just toss it in the chat and I'll look at it at the end. So the next question specifically was for David, and you've already answered part of this, but unlike Susie, you have a bookstore in a pretty large community. David's located in Cambridge. Well, actually, are you technically in Cambridge or you are now? And I was in Somerville. So anyway, there you are in a large metropolitan area, let's say. But you're still an independent bookstore. And not only do you have that, but you also have this very unusual ownership model. You partially answered all this, but I know you've talked about how the community has really come through and they seem to understand the difference between a brick and mortar store and the online world, but do they sometimes expect the same kind of shipping or the same kind of discounts that they might get through a big online vendor? Do you find that you have to do a little discussion or educating just so people can understand how different your model is?
Well, I mean, as Josh said, that the independent bookstore world has been doing this educating for a long time. Remember, every single person who buys a book in an independent bookstore, because by and large, you know, we might discount staff picks or bestseller, but for the most part, we sell books at their cover prices, and for the most part, Amazon discounts them, sometimes even below their cost, we think. So every single person who buys something from their local independent bookstore is making a conscious decision to spend more money for the same thing than they know they could have bought it elsewhere. So there has to be a reason for that. And I think what Josh alluded to is what the ABA has done a great job of, is given us as booksellers the tools to help people understand what that is, why that savings of buying something from, whole Amazon is a false savings. So in a way, yes, that same discussion extends to online, because we don't do free shipping. We charge what the post office charges us for shipping, and we don't have as good a website. I mean, the way I sometimes put it is, no independent bookstore is going to out Amazon. We're not going to be better at what Amazon does than they are. So what have we done? We've tried to position ourselves as we're not the same. We're not doing what they're doing. We're a completely different thing. And so, yeah, if you want to have a super easy website and get your stuff, shipped for free and all that, then no, we're not going to do all those things. But think of all the things we are doing. And again, most of those things are in the community, events and all the other things. But we've tried, and I think that paradoxically the pandemic has helped us in that, even though the pandemic in some ways has made it even more essential to be able to sell things to people without brick and mortar through online or other means, I think the pandemic has also made people realize how important local business is, and how even more than ever, even if you're buying online from your local bookstore as opposed to from Amazon, there's a better chance that when the pandemic is over, that local bookstore is still there. And so I think the pandemic in some ways, ironically or paradoxically, has strengthened our argument that we're important, and you need to support us, even though it's more expensive and maybe more inconvenient, and you don't get a lot of things that you get when you shop from a big online retailer, but you do get a lot of things that we think are a lot more important.
Yeah, well, I think I've read some articles that suggest that, and it is kind of paradoxical that that the fact that Amazon exists in some parts of the country anyway seems to have spurred the growth of a whole lot of independent bookstores, because small independent bookstores are the opposite of Amazon, and you can't walk into Amazon on a rainy day and browse by running your fingers over the backs of the spines of your favorite mystery author. And so it does give us that local connection that you just, you can get convenience online without question, but you can't get the experience. So let's see, I had another question. This one is for Kamani, Susie, and Z. As Black-owned stores, do you ever find that potential customers have specific expectations of what you carry compared to mainstream or online vendors? And how are they right and how are they wrong?
They know that we have, we're like a knowledge-based bookstore. So I would say they know we have some things here that they're not going to find. They haven't been able to find them in the larger retail bookstores. So that was my start to even getting into books. was finding my answers in bookstores that had people that looked like me navigating the information. Zara's Books and Things in Inglewood, California is where I got a book that changed my life to now being here today. So yeah, that's their expectation, and they're so delighted when they come here and see things that click for them. Yeah.
Can you tell us more? You said that there was a bookstore in California and you found a book that changed your life. Can you just tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, it's quite the story. Yeah, 4 years ago, around all that Trayvon Martin case kind of stuff was going on, all those names, there was a lot of Black bodies dropping, and I was very confused, and I was looking for answers, and I was in California, that's where I'm from, and I found Zara's Books and Things, and just navigated around the space and happened upon a book by Anthony Browder, Survival Strategies for Africans in America, and read the book. It wasn't very long, and it totally changed my life. I went to follow him after and see what he was doing, and then I've since sold so many copies of that book, and one of the people I sold a copy to, he actually now volunteers here on the daily, and his life has kind of like changed around too. He was one of the people I sold a book to in the club at 2:00 in the morning, you know. So it's so awesome to see everybody and what they're doing, and yeah. So we do have things that they and if they are looking for something that the bigger retailers have, they understand that we can get it for them as well. Like, so, and they're patient and they wait, and they're even happier to get it. So from us.
Yeah, this is really remarkable because what we're hearing now is a bookstore spawning another bookstore 3,000 miles away.
Oh, that was the other part of the story. So I came back there this year, a couple months ago, and it's gone.
Oh.
Yeah, devastated. But the way that someone told me, you know, because I walked around the corner and I was like, they changed up the windows, and why did they do some rebranding? And it wasn't there anymore. And somebody kind of talked about it as like passing the torch. And that's how I've been able to accept what happened, because I was like so upset, very upset. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm sort of letting that sink in. That's quite a story. Susie and Z, what has been your experience as running Black-owned bookstores? Do people have specific expectations, and are those expectations met, or are people surprised by what they see when they walk in?
So I think from the Olive Tree Books and Voices perspective, we're considered a specialty store, and in conjunction with Kamali, customers look to us for knowledge. They may not remember the name of the book they're looking for. They may not remember the author, but
the cover was orange.
Pardon me? Yeah, the cover
was orange.
So, and 9 times out of 10, we are able to say, oh, I know what you're talking about. Did it have this? Or was the story about A, B, and C? And, oh, yeah, that sounds right. And we're able to, you know, solidify that particular request. On the other hand, though, we're also able to, as Kamali said.
Oh, Kamani, yeah.
Kamani, I'm sorry.
No,
we are able to order books from any type of genre, whether it's, you know, religious or, you know, I even had, you know, Trump books in my bookstore because it's about knowledge. You know, it's about expanding your knowledge. So we try to have a variety of books, but our specialty pretty much is African American books, and customers come to the store primarily for that. And I don't think they've been disappointed. I think if anything, they feel impressed that we are able to help them and have some of the same experiences that they do.
And Susie, what's been your experience with that?
In our experience, people have, well, up in Rockport, it's probably a very, very, well, it is a very, very, very low percentage of African Americans or any other, it's not a very diverse community. But they have come in, people have been impressed by the books that we carry. We carry everything, books in Spanish, books in English, of all authors, all diversities, and people have been, very impressed by that. Have made suggestions, have uh, offered suggestions about, the books and the things that they've learned and found. So they seem to enjoy or like the selection that we have, and often comment on, I'm glad that you have these books, if it's Spanish or African American books, because we don't find that very often, up here in this area.
Cool. And question for Josh. I think you said that you're still not physically open yet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Wow. Okay. So ordinarily, I'm wondering, well, does your bookstore normally make recommendations either in person or, do you have shelf talkers, staff recommendations, that sort of thing? And if so, have you found a way of doing the equivalent either online or out in front of your store or something, and during this time when you're not able to be open in the way that you normally would?
Yeah, it's been a big challenge because for a long time, I think my philosophy as a bookseller at least, has been, the thing that you really achieve as an independent bookseller is not selling the person the book that they came in for. It's selling them the book next to the book that they came in for. There is a browsing experience which is impossible to replicate online, to our benefit in some ways, because it's something Amazon certainly hasn't figured out in their algorithms. They can sell you Educated or Hillbilly Elegy or something that's selling 1 million copies, but they have a very hard time, presenting. They're a funnel that kind of narrows down, whereas I'd like to think that booksellers are a cone that kind of opens up. And the best way we found to do that is engaging with our customers on social media. We have a social media manager at our store who has done an incredible job taking all the things that we do in terms of themed lists, which would usually be window displays or shelf talk displays, things like that, and creating virtual versions of those on our website. And there's still a lot of recommending going on over the phone when people are calling. It's still great to be able to talk to customers. And we also, the most fun we have as booksellers is an idea that I will admit that we 100% stole from, of all places, Porter Square Books in Cambridge and very near Somerville, is having mystery book bundles in which customers will tell us a little bit about what they like. We set a budget that gives them a little bit of a discount for, say, getting 3 books. And we put a package together for them based on their tastes and ship it out. And that's been really fun for us and our booksellers, and really fun for customers as well.
Josh, let me give you another idea to steal that came out of that, which is now we've expanded that, and now we do bookseller bundles. So many of our customers know the booksellers that they like and know that those booksellers, so you can get a Shayna bundle or a Kate bundle or a Josh bundle.
We were in fact ahead of you on that. We added that when we launched the bundles.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's fantastic. Right now I'm thinking when everything opens up again, road trip. Hit all of these places. Okay.
If I can very briefly, one other thing that we've done is, I think that this alludes to something that both Z and Doug had mentioned. When we talk about community, it's very easy to think when we're talking about our community, we're talking about our customers, whereas our community is authors in particular. Our community is other businesses in town, it's other organizations, and we have worked with organizations featuring one a month to curate their own lists, write their own staff picks, feature that on our website and on their website, and then donate a portion of the proceeds to those businesses. So that's been another way we've been connecting with our community.
Fantastic. Okay, this next question is for the entire panel. I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a kidney stone of a year. And do you find during these really challenging times that readers want more comfort books these days, or are they using quarantine to read up on subjects of interest? Is it current affairs that really grabs people? Z mentioned having books about our current president, for example. What's the mac and cheese that people are looking for in a bookstore right now?
It's funny you say mac and cheese, because cookbooks certainly have been a huge growth thing for us since this started. It was bread baking and sourdough in particular in March
oh my
and
God,
April
yes,
and
I
May.
did that.
And now we're tending towards like comfort food and soups and a lot of baking as well going into the holidays, pie books. But yeah, that's been a huge growth.
I think it's really, it would be interesting to plot over the last 8 months how it's changed from time to time. But I totally agree with Josh about cookbooks. But and of course, you know, starting Memorial Day weekend, for at least a month and a half, every bookstore in America was selling just untold volumes of books about anti-racism and you know, every one of these books, including ones that have been out for a while, went you know, back order because no one could get enough of them. I think that a lot of at the beginning of the pandemic, it was funny, everyone seemed to think that this was a good opportunity to read enormous classics that they had never read before. So suddenly, like War and Peace and Anna Karenina and Moby Dick and all these like 700-page tomes that they should have read in high school or college, they felt now was a good time to read them. I think that there was again, at least in my store, the politics section doubled in size in the last 8 months, partly a function of just how much was published. And I think a lot of people, to your point about a lot of people wanted to read fantasy.
And I saw a trend and an increase in children's books, because I think a lot, in children's books, because I think during the pandemic, a lot of people started looking at family and wanted to be close and wanted to be safe. So I saw a large number of requests for you know, how to be an anti-racist baby, you know, just books about race relations as it pertains to children, and, you know, understanding race identities and etc.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Ibram X. Kendi had a really good year in selling books, and it was all over the place for us. And I also, it seems to vary because of the kind of tourist nature of our audience. It almost varies week to week, but I think you know, some books about politics and about race relations in the country definitely were popular. I think children's books were very popular to some, and I think one of the reasons for us and probably everybody was that when libraries closed and the access, well, they didn't close entirely, access was restricted, and a lot of people expressed to me that they were frustrated by the fact that they could order, you basically have to order books from the library, then you could pick them up, but you couldn't go in, you couldn't touch them. So people didn't like that, and so they kind of preferred to come to the store. And where they would have gotten more books from the library, they now turned to buying those books instead, I think, which helped us during the pandemic as well. And but I don't know if there was any particular, I didn't see anything in particular in terms of a trend for types of books that people were buying. I saw some of everything that people mentioned previously, long tomes and short books. And some people did also express the fact that they were tired of the drama and they just wanted something like a beach read or something as well. So I think it was all over the place depending on the person, but those are the factors I think influenced it for us.
Yeah, I think because I mean, I already sell a curated list. offerings, that's what they chose from. Yeah, everything from entrepreneurship to yeah, anti-racism titles were out of this world. Um, yeah, that's what I'd say.
I remember once years ago, somebody in a writing class making the observation that when the economy tanks, book sales often go up because books are incredible entertainment value. And I realized how right he was, because if I pay, I don't know, let's say $10 for a book and I read it, and then my husband reads it, and maybe we share it with our kids. I mean, you can't do that with, you know, and we've still got it, you know, 6 months or 10 years later. You can't do that with most other forms of entertainment once you, not that anyone's going out to movies now, but if you spent that same 10, $15 on a movie ticket, 2 hours later, it's gone. So we're actually, goodness me, we're almost done. And I did want to leave a little time at the end for some questions in the chat. But my final question for the panel is, what do you wish authors understood better about bookstores? And what do you wish you understood better about authors?
Well, I really don't have an answer for that.
Well, you're an author too.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, I'm not sure I can really answer that. So.
Yeah, I thought about that a little bit because the bookstore and also my profile is more about relationships. So when I think about authors, I think about having relationships with authors, not just having them sell books. So if I were to look at what would work better for me, it would be really establishing relationships with authors versus you know, I just wrote a book. You can go online and read the reviews and that sort of thing. I prefer to have an author say, well, I've written a book. I've looked at your audience. I think this may be good for you. May I send you a copy? You know, at least have an introduction rather than I need you to sell my book. So that's important to me because if the relationship is established early on, then I'm more prone to refer your book to other customers because I know what the book is about and I know what you're about.
fair enough.
Let me think. Authors. Yeah, that audience thing is really important too. Like, we get sent. We sometimes, yeah. I mean, I'm new to this, and I'm all of a sudden getting just things in the mail from all these different people, and I don't know what's in the package. And so yeah, just I would say, because you know they want us to put on events and things like that, and just being patient with us too. We've been working on building up our online platform for events now, so we need time to. We just came up off of the summertime with all those sales and things like that. That was a whole process. So now we want to be ready to deliver the best experience for the author and for our audience. So we just need the time to be able to do that. And some authors or their agent kind of thing, it's kind of like been very aggressive about setting a date for their events. And I'm like, well, we got a whole lot of other stuff going on right now. And I still see your link for Amazon in your email. Like, you know, it's hard for me to accommodate with kind of things like that. We actually, like on our website, we actually have the ability to add your book directly to the website, you know, so it's like just making sure that they're doing some research too with our platform before asking certain things would be great.
Yeah, to echo some of that, I think that like we are here as booksellers, so we want to sell books, and part of that is like we want your books to succeed as authors. We want this to be a positive relationship, and we want your books to sell. And understanding that policies we have in place around events or around what we stock or where we stock it in our stores, our terms, things like that. Those policies are, I think the misperception is sometimes those policies seem to amount to some sort of gatekeeping, which I guess in some technical sense they do, and that we're making decisions, but it is not meant to stop your book from selling or being successful. Where we stock the book, all of our policies are meant to, lift us all up to help the book sell, I think.
And related to that, I'd say that, and this is true of all, not just mystery authors, but of all authors, there are a lot of people, when Louise Penny comes out with a new book, X number of million people are going to buy it. But if you're not Louise Penny, for the most part, what really is going to drive an independent bookstore's sales of an author's book, especially when the author is local, is the author's own efforts to say, here's my book and get it at Porter Square Books, because most of the books we sell are not books by, famous people, and certainly most of the books that we sell from local authors are books that we sell because those authors are out there in their own networks, telling people that their book is there and telling them where they can get it. To your point, an author who writes a letter saying, please stock my book in your store, and in the letter says, if you want to look at the book, here's a link to Amazon where you can see it. That's not going to land in the right way. So I think really an understanding that for many, many authors, you have much more ability to drive interest in the book than we do. And what the best thing you can do is let people know that we're the best place to get it.
I think people might not know this, but it's a website called bookstore.org. And if you're interested in supporting local bookstores, it's kind of an Amazon alternative, because if you type in the name of a book that you're looking for, they'll tell you, bookstore.org will tell you what local bookstore you can get it at.
It's actually
I
Bookshop.
think it may be Bookshop.
Bookshop.org. I'm so sorry, you're quite right.
That's right.
So it sounds like, from what you're saying, that might be one more sort of palatable thing that, Clea just put it in the chat, that authors could do. Here's my book online, but it's through bookshop.org, not Amazon. Okay, do people mind staying like a minute or two more? Because there were like 3 questions in the chat that we didn't get to yet. If people don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. Mo has 2 questions. First, Susie says she is an author. What does she write?
Currently, I've written children's stories. So currently I am writing in the middle of 2 novels. I'm trying to write a YA and then a mystery novel around social services.
You're in the right place. Okay. And this is for the whole group. Do people have plans for a small business Saturday?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, no?
Yes, but mostly virtual. In other words, we have a lot of, one of the things about Small Business Saturday, which for those of you who don't know is something that ABA started a few years ago for the Saturday after Thanksgiving, is they produce a lot of specialized merchandise for Small Business Saturday. And so I think for us, Small Business Saturday is going to be much more focused on the different things that we can offer rather than getting 1 million people into the store with local authors. We'll probably have some local authors, to what Josh said before, curate some lists of books for us to offer. But other than that, it's going to be pretty hard. It's the nature of the day is that it's very in person.
Right. And last question, this is kind of a technical thing. It was Clea is asking Z, although I suppose anybody can answer this, how far ahead of publication would you want to see a book?
How far ahead of publication? Probably maybe a couple of months or so.
Does that sound about right to the rest of the panel?
I'd agree. I think more time to get familiar with it, to get to know the book before it's released.
Okay.
I think that would be a good time frame.
All right. This is the kind of thing I can tell you as an author, this kind of information is golden. Okay, well, I think that wraps it up. I really want to thank everybody who came, especially our 5 panelists. And like I said, when we can all travel